I'm Mr. Sufri, like I mentioned, and just a quick introduction about myself. I teach physical education and mathematics, and the topic that we will be sharing or discuss today is something that is close to my heart, as this is part of my research area when I was doing my postgraduate studies. I'm certainly delighted to be able to share a little bit on it, and as the title suggests, it is the intertwined roles of physical and mental well-being in our daily lives. The big idea here is to be able to recognize that mental well-being is equally as important as physical well-being in promoting a higher level of happiness in life. Okay, this is the table of content for the entire presentation. We'll cover 5 important points. Number 1 would be what is well-being. 2, relationship between physical and mental well-being. 3, factors contributing to well-being. 4, how do we structure the parental support? And last but not least, let's look at well-being through the lens of motivation. More focus will be given on point 4 and point 5, as these are the more practical aspects of the presentation that you could directly apply to your child or even yourself. Let's start off by knowing the definition of well-being. Let's focus on the right, the box at the bottom one. Well, well-being is about being comfortable, healthy, and happy. There are actually 2 components of well-being, like as you have guessed during the Kahoot quiz itself, namely the physical and mental well-being. When both components are present, then the individual can be considered as having this greater sense of well-being. Okay, in this presentation, I'll be sharing the 6 ingredients to a better well-being. We'll first look into the first 3 ingredients that contributes to physical well-being. All 3 ingredients are equally important. The lack of one ingredient can significantly affect the person's overall physical well-being. You know, just like in cooking, the missing of one ingredient can totally change the taste of the food. And I guess most of the time, the taste would be for the worst. So remember that it's important to take note that all 3 are equally important. The first ingredient is the healthy diet. The diagram on the left is our My Healthy Plate that students are very aware of as we teach it in class. I think it's important to note that the proportion of types of food that should go into the plate or onto the plate. The biggest component, as you can see, should be the fruits and vegetables, because fruits and vegetables provide the main nutrients and vitamins for the body. Subsequently, we have the other 2 components that will provide, like your protein, like your calcium, as well as a more complex form of carbohydrates to be used as energy fuel. Now, brown rice, like we mentioned earlier, for example, and also like wholemeal bread, spaghetti, this contains more complex carbohydrates, and these carbohydrates are not easily broken down as our body takes a longer time to break it down. Thus, the energy fuel is released at a slower rate, and this energy can be used across the day. So it's actually a good source of carbohydrates. On the other hand, if we consume more of simple carbohydrates like white rice, the carbohydrates break down faster in the body, and this provides that instant energy. But the thing is, we don't actually need that instant energy because we are not, exercising 24/7. So if we don't use this energy, it will then turn into fat. I think a key point to note here is that a healthy diet is a balanced diet. And if we were to look at the diagram on the right and look at the words that are boxed out, you may wonder, aren't chocolates and ice creams unhealthy? Why are they then termed under healthy food? Well, that's because consuming them under small quantities are perfectly fine. Maybe like once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks. Eat them before or after an intensive exercise where the body needs that instant refueling. Because ice cream and chocolates provide that simple form of carbohydrates as well, and you can use it for instant refueling. And more importantly, having ice creams and chocolates also tie to our mental aspect of well-being. When we eat this food, we feel healthy, we feel happy even, and this increases our overall well-being. The second ingredient would be regular physical activity. These are the World Health Organization guidelines for the different age groups. And these guidelines are actually aligned to our Health Promotion Board. I think the key point here is the regularity of physical activity. It cannot be a one-off or a seasonal kind of exercise, like for example, only exercise during the June holiday. Rather, it should be an exercise or physical activity that a person can perform consistently every week. Yeah, so I know that some of my students, they mentioned that every morning before going to school, or they will actually do some form of exercise with their parents. And I think that is really a great habit, a great routine to have. And I think also equally important is that regular exercise benefits our mental well-being, as there are many studies that show that regular exercise helps to release these endorphin hormones in our brain. This endorphin provides us with this very feel-good factor, leading to greater happiness. And I'm sure we've actually felt this feel-good factor before, especially after a very intensive exercise, and then that period where you are taking a break from the exercise, you feel that sudden surge in feel-good factor. Well, that's actually our endorphin taking effect. The third ingredient is quality sleep. The diagram explains the multi-benefits of quality sleep. Again, sleep is also crucial in a person's mental well-being, as it helps to reduce anxiety, as you can see through one of the points there. More importantly, it is the consistent number of hours of sleep every night that matters. For younger children, like our primary school children, our primary school students, they need about 9 to 11 hours of uninterrupted rest. Now, let's take a look at the other three ingredients contributing to mental well-being. The first ingredient is the study and playtime balance. Studies have shown that children are indeed more relaxed when they are having fun. When engaging in fun activities, feeling of stress will actually decrease. This in turn helps to recharge our brain and would thus make for better brainstorming and memorizing when it comes to study. The second ingredient would be gratitude, or simply put, it is the quality of being thankful and appreciative. I think this quality or this value is something that a lot of our, or if not all, our West Grove students have. We always see our West Grove students, being very kind not only to their teachers but also to their friends, and also showing a lot of gratitude and appreciation. And one way I think that our West Grove students are very, very familiar with is the bucket filler, where every class, they have this bucket filler for every student, and we see a lot of students always take the initiative to write good things, to praise their friends when their friends put in effort in certain things, and I think that's showing a lot of gratitude. And most importantly, it is a key ingredient to greater happiness. It will then help to deal with adversity and building even stronger relationships with friends, with peers, with family members, with teachers. Last but not least is the feeling of connectedness in the quality of relationship that a person shares with other humans. Okay, Mr. Sufri, you have shown a lot of these different ingredients, but how do we actually put it into practice? How can we actually apply this into our daily life, into our children's routine? Well, we have come up with a simple two-tiered framework, as you can see from the screen, that you could try with your child during this June holiday, or maybe even after June holiday when the COVID situation has improved, especially when it comes to going out for family activities. Okay. I think importantly, the objective here is to progressively increase the child's overall well-being. This means trying to put into practice the ingredients at a progressive state, as well as trying our best to improve their well-being bit by bit. The first tier would be to get the buy-in from our child. And 3 practical suggestions that we would like to share are having a reward system, something that even teachers we use this quite often in the classroom. Second, removing temptation, and also praising your child's effort in trying to exemplify any of these 6 ingredients. Once the buy-in is in place, we can then move on to the next tier, which is creating a routine together. It can involve the child's parents, siblings, and even teachers. And we also have 3 practical suggestions, and that will be to eat fruits for snacks, to engage in a weekend family activity regularly, and also to try to sleep by 9:30 p.m. Okay, now let's apply a case study in relation to the 2-tiered framework. Okay, we'll go clockwise from here and we'll start from the reward system. First, we could probably provide the child with a reward chart. As you can see, he or she can get a sticker for every instant that he or she demonstrate any of the 6 ingredients. For example, it could be sleeping by 9:30 p.m. I think especially now during home-based learning and even during the June holidays, I think there could be a tendency for our children to sleep slightly later. And I think that's a challenge for us to try to get them to still sleep early, still probably sleep about the same time as they go to school on a usual basis. So one way would be this reward system. For example, if they are able to sleep by 9:30 p.m., we can provide them with a sticker the next day. And once the child has accumulated or has gotten 10 stickers, the child could then be rewarded with, for example, more phone time. Next is removing temptation. An example would be to remove, like we talked about phone, remove all phone and tablet devices like your iPad and all. We use the same example of sleeping by 9:30 p.m. We can try to take away all these devices from our children, let's say by 8 p.m. And by removing these temptations, the child can also focus on the task on hand, which is to fall asleep. Next, praising the child's effort and behavior. I think by recognizing the effort, the child would want to perform the same behavior over and over again. An example could be, the recent home-based learning. We could give praise to the child for him or her giving his or her best to complete the lesson as much as possible on his or her own time. So for myself, I do check with the parents during the parent-teacher meeting, and I did ask, how independent has their child be during home-based learning. And I think it's very encouraging to hear that, after the first attempt of helping the child to access Zoom session, for example, subsequently, the child is able to, or many of the students are able to access Zoom on their own. So I think little things like this, it's best if we can praise the effort, because this will actually help them to want to do this positive behavior over and over again. Next, at the bottom left is having fruits for snacks. Yeah, I myself must admit that I like to snack a lot, and I used to like to eat a lot of chocolate bars, your Mars, for example, and then ice cream and all this. But then I realized that hey, there are better alternatives such as mangoes, because the thing that I crave most is the feeling of sweetness, and I think mangoes are a good alternative or any other fruit. And it's a win-win situation because mangoes contain a lot of nutrients and vitamins as compared to eating all the junk food like chocolate bars and all. Next, we have the weekend family activity. An outdoor amazing race using a bingo card as the checklist could potentially be very, very fun. Completing the activity together can definitely foster stronger connectedness on top of the activity itself being a good form of exercise. And I think later on, Madam Lau, she will share more on like the different activities that she actively does with her children, and I think that is something interesting that we should look forward to. And last but not least, being in bed by 9:30 p.m. And as you can see that a lot of the examples that I have given links back to quality sleep. This is actually part of a larger sleep hygiene where the focus is to create and follow a routine. In this regard, the physical bedtime setting must be very consistent. If the child has trouble sleeping early, we can always modify that physical setting to make it more conducive. And I think all this tie in nicely to the motivational chart shown on the screen. The chart shows the different stages of motivation quality, and essentially motivation can be described as the intensity and the direction of effort in performing a certain task or activity. In this instance, we are talking about motivation to lead an active lifestyle that can promote greater well-being. So, if we are to look at this chart, you can see that there's actually a spectrum of quality of motivation, starting from the left, which is a more controlling motivation, a poorer form of motivation, and as we move on to the right, then we get the so-called the highest quality of motivation. When we were to focus on the left, there's the amotivation. Amotivation simply means there's no desire to improve at all. That means the child is not even doing anything to try to improve his or her well-being. I guess sometimes we do face such situation when our children are not motivated at all. So the objective here is to try to shift them to move to a better quality of motivation, which is more on the right side of the spectrum. Now, linking back to the strategies that we have shared. Okay, the getting children to buy in is somewhere along when the child has less motivation, when the child is still being forced to improve. That's where we can get them to do the buy-in. And for example, just now, we can provide them with reward, we can also praise them, they feel happy, and then they will want to do the behavior over and over again. Once we have reached that stage, once they have moved, to a better quality of motivation, that's where we can set certain routines. And for example, the routine was, okay, you can still have your snacks, but this time around, we have better alternatives, like for example, fruits. Once you put on this set of routine, they will then be able to identify with the values of improving their well-being. They know that, okay, now I can see that, maybe I feel happier now, maybe I can feel healthy, or maybe I have a reduction in weight. These are the things that they can identify and they can actually feel. So their level of motivation has improved. And last but not least, to reach so-called the highest quality level of motivation, where they really want to improve their well-being solely for the sake of doing it, or we call it solely for fun and solely for being satisfied internally, they need to have experience competence. Means they know that, for example, if they were to engage in a weekend family activity, they know that, okay, I can complete all the bingo checklist, I feel competent. And we provide autonomy. Maybe today we do a weekend family amazing race, and then maybe next time give them the opportunity to choose an activity that they want to do. That will also increase their autonomy, which I think later on Madam Lau will share more about it, and you will realize that Madam Lau's children is very, very happy to be very involved in all the different activities. And last but not least is the relatedness, doing together with the parents, because at the end of the day, children look up to their parents or their teachers or even to their older siblings. So if the parents can be good role model of the teachers or even the older siblings, then that will increase the level of motivation of the child. Okay, in conclusion, because I think just now I started off with sharing about the 6 ingredients to greater well-being. So let me also try to get back and use the analogy of cooking. As you can see, we have our pot, and the cooking pot is where we put all the 6 ingredients in. Remember that, it's equally important to have all 6 ingredients in. Like I mentioned, if one ingredient is missing, the taste may not be good. And maybe in this instance, we can talk about cooking a soup. Okay, especially now during this rainy weather, having a soup will be very, very nice. And the ladle will actually signify the parental support, because at the end of the day, to cook something, because since our children is still young, I guess us as parents will be the one to help to stir all these ingredients. So that's where you can come in. to provide the buy-in for your child, as well as later on creating a routine together. And with that, I end my presentation. And before that, of course, once we have finished cooking, we can taste the food, and in this instance, the taste will be a higher level of well-being. Okay, with that, we move on to the question and answer. Okay, thank you, Ms. Ong, for collating the questions. I think these are the questions that perhaps some of you have already included in the chat function. So our colleague Ms. Ong has already compiled them. Okay, the first question would be, I'm already very tired after work. How more to exercise? Okay, I think this is a very, very relevant question, and it's a question that, I guess a lot of us face. One way for us to do this is really, one is to create a routine, and second, to have that routine to do it, purposefully. And one way to do it is, for myself, is I feel that important ingredient is the connectedness. Because for myself, if after I go home, I feel so tired, I need something to help me to spur to do that exercise. And my routine involves having a buddy to actually run together. Yeah. So my buddy, fortunately, is also my colleague, and fortunately, we live very near each other. We do sometimes go on a run together in this area, and this actually provides that commitment bind, because I know that if I don't run, and then I will let my buddy down, and also because we already have set a target to improve our timing. So I think one way is to really have a routine, followed by having that sense of connectedness, do it together with family members, with siblings, set a target, set a goal together, and all this at the end will form this commitment bind, which will spur you to even work out even when you don't feel like it. Okay, second question, what if my child doesn't like to eat vegetables? Can I substitute with fruits instead? To be honest, as I was growing up in my teenage years, I also don't like to eat vegetables. I only probably started eating vegetables when I started to train to be a PE teacher. Yeah. So I think one way would be to infuse vegetables slowly in maybe, for example, just now the example of cooking a soup, right? So we could add little vegetables inside, probably like lettuce or broccoli, cut it into small pieces so that the taste is not so overpowering. Probably the chicken soup taste is stronger, and that way we can slowly and progressively include vegetables into the diet. I guess the main point here is not to force, because when we force children or even ourselves to do something, like I mentioned just now, the quality of motivation will significantly drop, and this will even be harder to get the buy-in from our child or our children. So we can do it in a more discreet manner. Put a little bit of vegetables, make sure that the vegetable taste do not overpower the main taste of the food. And slowly, the child will learn to love vegetables. Of course, fruits will be a good substitute as well, because they provide a lot of nutrients and vitamins, but it's just that sometimes some of the nutrients from the fruit, from the vegetables, do not come from fruits. So there still need to be a balance of eating both vegetables and fruit. Third one, my child has the habit of using handphone in his room at night. How to get him to put away the handphone? Okay, I think this is also a common habit or problem that even teachers or even adults like myself face. Yeah, because we want to check on news, sometimes we want to check our WhatsApp, Facebook and all. So one way is to create a routine, and this routine, I guess, has to be set together with parents and the children and the entire family. I think Madam C shared a very important example when we were discussing together. What she would do with her children is that she would set a time, probably like 1 or 2 hours before bedtime, to have everyone in the family members, including the parents, including herself, to keep all the phones inside this small box in the living room. In that sense, no one is allowed to, access handphone or laptops, for example. And this way, the parents are being good role model to the child. The child sees that, oh, okay, parents are also not using the phone, so I would also not do. And the best part, you can actually set that bedtime routine. Maybe, you can actually use that time to spend more time with your children, read books with them before they go to sleep. Because by reading books, this will actually create that pleasure, and this pleasure will reduce the stress in our brain, which will then let us to be able to sleep better. Okay, last question. My child likes to snack at home. How to stop him or her to stop snacking? One way is to remove temptation. Remove all the snacks at home and then substitute it with better alternatives, for example, like fruits. So I'm quite fortunate. As I was growing up, my mom would actually cut mangoes for me and then put it in the refrigerator. So that was one way that I changed my lifestyle habit to eating healthier fruit. And of course, another way of stopping eating snack is to exercise. So usually once you finish exercising, like we mentioned earlier, you get this feel-good factor. And usually when you have this feel-good factor, you will stop thinking, or you have a reduced thinking of food. And this will ensure that you will eat lesser. Yep. Thank you for all the questions, and thank you for listening to the presentation. We really appreciate it. I think now I'll pass the back to Madam C. And before that, remember you can scan the survey. You can scan the QR code to access to the survey. And even if you have, you need more time, you can also fill the survey at the end of this entire session. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Pass back
Thank
to
you,
you,
Mr.
Madam C.
Sufri.